listening to SFP-NOW.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of SFP Now. We have a brilliant interview coming up in a few seconds with comics writer Frank Martin, who's talking about his new comic, Modern Testament 3, which basically there's 3 stories in each of these comic books, and it's all based on, sort of like religious mythology and so forth. So you got sort of like gods from the Bible, the Old Testament, as well as sort of like Greek gods and what have you. So without further ado, we're just going to sort of like tune in and talk to Frank Martin. I'd like to welcome comics writer Frank Martin to the show. He's coming on to talk about his anthology series, which is into its 3rd issue now, I think, called Modern Testament 3. So it's kind of like the Old Testament but modernised.
Yeah, you got the Old Testament, then you got the New Testament, and now we need a newer Testament. So I figured call it Modern Testament.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the first question I'd like to ask you is probably the question you get the most. How did you get into comics? How did you get into writing comics?
Well, I was typically like writing just in general, regular prose stories, short stories. I started out like most people, writing fan fiction, being into certain shows and movies, and wanting to write stories based on that. And I enjoyed reading comics, so like most people in that situation, I figured I like writing, I like comics, let me give it a shot writing comics. So it was kind of a natural progression, and it turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought.
I bet. Is Modern Testament your first foray into comics, or have you actually done a bit of work before that?
It is. Well, the way I got into Modern Testament is because I took a comics writing class. And, of course, in a comics writing class, they're not going to have you write a whole issue. They're going to have you write a short. And then, so at the end of the class, I was left with this short. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this? So I figured, why not make an anthology? So I had to write other shorts. And then from there, the series kind of took off. So I created a 2nd volume, and then a 3rd, and I got a 4th in the works, which I'm planning on it being the last.
Cool. What was it about? What was it that was really inspired you to do Modern Testament? And because from what I've seen, it's kind of like a lot of the characters from the Old Testament of the Bible, kind of like modernised and with a superhero slant on them.
Well, just to me, it was just another aspect of fantasy, mythology in general, and like I said in that class. The story I wrote was about an angel, and it was kind of a standalone story. It really had nothing to do with anything, and I figured I need to put this to some use, so if I'm going to put it in an anthology, I need a theme. And I ran with the theme of biblical beings, like angels, so the next one was a demon, and then I did the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and I kind of pursued it from there, thinking of other biblical beings to continue that theme with future volumes. So, well, it wasn't anything really purposeful, it was just I was trying to be practical and keep things connected.
Yeah, and you say you're working on the 4th issue. The 3rd issue's on like it's been released recently.
It's coming out later this month, sometime in the middle of December.
Okay, so given that this will be out in January, people can actually look for it. I'm sure there'll be plenty of issues around.
I'm sorry.
There'll be plenty of issues around, won't there?
Yeah. It's going to be available in digital and print. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to be hitting some cons, and people can pick it up there, or you can get it on the website. And the publisher, Insane Comics, does a pretty good job making it available either through Comixology or Drive Through Comics, or the easiest and best place to get all their titles is pretty much through the website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll probably have a bash through Comixology. I mean, I got the PDF version, which I read the first two issues alongside Pat, and Patrick, who unfortunately can't be on the podcast today because he's working. He absolutely loves the series. I mean, I think he's actually giving you some real positive reviews.
I appreciate that. It's certainly put a lot of heart and soul into this, because it's not like I got one story I can put everything into. Each volume in and of itself has 3 stories, so I got to constantly work with different creative teams and churn out different stories and making sure everything kind of comes together in the end.
Has that been a bit of a problem though for you? In terms of having different creative teams each time out.
I wouldn't say it's a problem. It's just more work and it's a bigger challenge, but it's definitely more rewarding. I definitely meet new people because I need to find whatever I need to do for a single story. I need to do 3 times over if there's 3 stories, and I try to put a pin up in every issue, so that's even more people involved. So I find it cool that I got a little bit of a Modern Testament network going on between the 4 volumes. I'm going to have a lot. There have been a lot of people who have had their hands touched in this series.
Mm-hmm. And you're completely independent. You do this completely independently, with just reaching out to artists and what have you within the comics community, right?
Definitely. I mean, when I first started pursuing more volumes through Insane Comics, I was talking to the editor, James, and I was trying to keep him in the loop, and he's like, man, I'm behind whatever you want to do. This is your series. You go after it. So it's pretty much been all me figuring out who's going to do what and arranging everything, and it's been tough, but it's definitely rewarding in the end.
Mm-hmm. You say that you're only doing a 4th volume. Now, I should imagine with all the characters from the Old Testament, as well as characters from ancient mythologies, from the different ancient mythologies that we have, because you got Greek, you've got Hindu mythology, you got Norse, you got all those things. I should imagine it's quite feasible for Modern Testament to actually go on for in infinity.
Pretty much. I mean, for this series, for Modern Testament itself, I'm trying to stick to religious scriptures, trying to pull mythologies from that. Majority of them are from the New Testament, but in Volume 2, I have a golem, which is from typically Jewish mythology. Volume 3 actually features genies, which is a Islamic mythology thing. I haven't really delved into Greek and Norse or Egyptian mythology, but it's definitely feasible, and it's not an unconnected issue, so it could definitely go on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I noticed in issue 3 that you've got the jinn, in the genies, and as soon as I've got time to read that, I'm gonna sort of sink my head into it. It's just sort of as you know, things kind of insanely busy around this time of year.
Yeah, it's holidays. Everybody's doing something that really doesn't stop. But that story in particular, I'm pretty proud of. I cheated a little bit because I'm trying to feature one character in each story. And for that one, I kind of chose I have 2 genies in it, so technically there's 4 characters in Volume 4. But, that one I'm particularly proud of because it's got an interesting premise to it, and that the genies interact in a world a little bit in between ours. So everything is black and white except for them, and then we transfer over to the real world, which is in color. So the story definitely has an interesting dynamic to it. So I was definitely proud to put that one together.
Mm-hmm. Well, as an independent comics writer, given that you've done Modern Testament, you've got Volume 4 in the works, Volume 3 coming out soon. Do you have any comic book plans beyond Modern Testament that you can talk about?
I got a couple things I'm working on collaborating with a bunch of different artists in much different genres than Modern Testament. I got some action series, working on some pirate stories, some crime stories, a little more grounded in reality than Modern Testament, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to cap it at 4 issues, because I could probably keep going, but it's at some point you kind of have to move on to other projects that are being held up because of it.
Mm-hmm. As a comics creator, as a comics writer, who would you say has probably been the most inspiration to you, as in from other comics writers or things like that?
I would say growing up, I read a lot of Mark Millar, and he's definitely riding a wave right now. He's pretty popular, but reading a lot of his stuff, he's done a great job at touching so many different genres and bringing out a lot of works, publishing kind of them on his own. I mean, obviously he became popular writing for DC and writing for Marvel, and he decided to take a go of doing his own characters, and he's really done a good job building his own brand, and he pumps out a lot of creator-owned series, so he's definitely been a real inspiration.
He does as well, and he kind of divides comic book readers as well. Because I remember I used to do this podcast a long time ago with Wayne Hall. He went off and did his own Wayne's World, and noticed you'd been on an episode of his. But I remember having quite in-depth conversations with Wayne about Martin Millar. Because Wayne didn't quite get Nemesis or some of the more sort of like graphic and violence and of Martin Millar's work.
He's definitely polarizing with a lot of the stuff that he writes.
He most definitely is. But I actually think that's actually a good thing. Because the way I see it, if you're not polarizing opinion and stuff like that, you as a writer or even as a comic book writer, you're not doing your job properly.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like I think writers are out there to actually challenge other people's perceptions, and that's part of why it's such an entertaining genre.
Yeah, he's just got a really diverse catalog of stories and things that he's done. I mean, you see he does have a lot of violence in them. Nemesis, obviously, being a big one. Wanted being another. But he also has a lot of strong thematic stories too. I mean, I just take Civil War that he architected at Marvel, and that in and of itself I thought was a huge success. It was very dynamic and involved a lot of characters, and there was a lot to be said about it.
Yeah, and it had Sam Jackson as Nick Fury before Sam Jackson became Nick Fury.
Oh yeah, Ultimates. he definitely did a great job launching the Ultimate Universe, and that was kind of the big one that got me into the comics. I definitely got sucked into Marvel's whole marketing strategy with that.
Mm-hmm. So, what kind of stories inspire you? Because obviously, modern Testament's kind of like biblical mythology and stuff like that. Are you actually a big fan of mythology, science fiction, that kind of storytelling?
I am. I mean, I like to think I touch on everything. I mean, when it comes to music, I like a little bit of every type of music, and I think the same thing when it comes to stories. I try not to get pigeonholed into one genre, either writing horror or writing science fiction. I think every single genre has its pros and its cons, and I like writing comedy, and I like writing mystery, and I like writing all this stuff. So I try to dabble into every single type of story, and in the end, even making a story that takes elements of all these different types of genre and putting them together, because there's no one genre that is just one dynamic type of genre,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the best stories are actually a mishmash of lots of different genres. I mean, look at Doctor Who. You can have a time travel. You can have a time travel historical one week, and then he's fighting the Daleks for next, and then he's meeting the Queen the week after that. So, like,
yeah, I have a confession to make. I've never seen an episode of Doctor Who.
Well, I'm not going to hold that against you.
I hear great things about it. Maybe I'll check it out. There's just so much great TV out now. It's hard to keep track, especially if you're super busy.
Indeed, it is. I mean, I've actually got stuff on my Skybox that's been on there for about a good year that I've not got to watching yet.
I'm surprised they didn't delete it on you.
Well, I kind of delete odd stuff and think, well, on second thoughts, I don't think something like that. So I kind of, get rid of stuff a little bit along the way because you have to.
Yeah, I watch a lot of this. I watch a lot of stuff with my wife, so it has to correspond our schedules into making sure that we can both watch at the same time. But a lot of stuff I watch by myself. I can't just watch a show and not do anything because there's just so much to watch that just to sit down will take so much time. So I try to watch stuff while doing the dishes or watch stuff while doing the laundry, or I always have to be doing something else.
Yeah, that's usually how I listen to music and watch stuff as well. And when I'm not doing that, I'm playing my guitar, or riding for the side. But it's just crazy. There's so much choice out there now. But there's also so much crap.
There is.
Modern Testament, the fourth issue. Could you give us a little bit of a maybe insight into what that is?
I figure with the fourth issue, I figure go big or go home. Uh-huh. So I'm going for the big guns. I'm doing a story on God, and I'm doing a story with the devil. So wow. The two biggest figures, I guess, in those type of mythologies. And for each, another reason why I'm doing 4 volumes is I'm trying to divide a Horseman of the Apocalypse for every volume, and I figure obviously the biggest of the Horsemen is Death, because he's definitely gonna close out the series with the final volume.
Cool. Have you ever thought of doing sort of like a Modern Testament team up where you basically have Moses and Noah and stuff like that and team up like the Avengers?
I've kind of thought about it. I've actually have a buddy, Braden Cox, who's doing a series called Reclaiming Godhood, which features the Roman god Jupiter, mm-hmm. and he's having kind of side issues where Jupiter jumps between realities. So we've been talking about possibly doing a crossover where the Roman god Jupiter would be interacting with some of the characters from Modern Testament.
That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to wait to round out Volume 4 and then trying to tackle the idea at that time, but it's definitely something that's in the works.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, not really. I mean, I'm working on a whole bunch of comic stuff, but I do a lot of prose writing too. I've just had a horror novel that was released about a month or so ago. It was a dual horror novel. It was kind of like a pulp fiction kind of or pulp horror type of themed book where I got a vampire story and a werewolf story, and it's double-sided, so you read one story and then you flip it over and then you can read the other story. Wow, that's a cool idea. Yeah, and I just had that out with an indie publisher, Burning Willow Press here in the States, and yeah, I got a couple other stories I'm working on, so I've been trying to keep busy. Do you have a website where people can keep up with your work? The best way I post a lot of the stuff about what I'm doing on my Facebook page, which would be facebook.com/FrankMartinWriter, and I tweet from time to time at Frank the Writer, just kind of various thoughts on writing or pick work in progresses that I got going on. Okay, well, thanks a lot for your time, Frank, and we look forward to reading Modern Testament 4 when it comes out, and 3 as well when that drops. Thanks for having me on. No worries.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Corey, writer of Image Comics Moriarty and Red City and Danger Cats Bloodworth, and you are listening to SFP-NOW.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed our interview with Frank Martin. You should really check out Modern Testament. It's a great comic. Joining me now for the television segment is Raissa. Raissa, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you!
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
And how was Christmas?
Christmas was good. I got lots of chocolates and, lots of chocolate and tea, and we had a great time. I spent time with my mom. Cool. Yeah.
Well, my Christmas wasn't so good, unfortunately. My best bud, my wingman, my cat, Sasha, he sadly passed away.
Condolences.
So that put a big downer on Christmas for me. But, he was around for 20 years. His favourite things were batting the TV when the football was on, zoning out to Doctor Who, and trying to chase the X-Wing fighters around the screen when Star Wars was on.
Aww.
That was when he was a kitten. And one of his other hobbies was car surfing. So he was a very active cat.
Sounds like.
But without further ado, television. We've had quite a bit happen over Christmas. The usual shows are off the air, but I'm not sure if you want to do a little bit of DC news towards the end to round things off.
I published 2 DC articles of stuff that came out of the TCAs, and I'll just bring up a couple of things that were mentioned during the TCAs.
Okay, so we'll bring those up towards the end. I'm thinking the best place to start really here is, because we didn't discuss it and really too much, but we had a Doctor Who special air over Christmas, and for once it wasn't about Christmas.
Yes, and it was actually the best one we've had in a while. It was the superhero themed one, and they really went all out. It was quite wonderful. I
really enjoyed it. It's sort of like obviously it didn't have the amount of depth and subtlety that some of the average episodes do, but the Christmas episodes never do. But for a Christmas episode, for a special episode, it was actually one of the best ones I've seen. Certainly the best one since since A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Which is my favourite actually out of the Christmas episodes. I think that one and the very first one that they did with David Tennant.
The David Tennant one was excellent. Yeah. So this one benefited from not being overly Christmassy, and this one benefited from just being unapologetically what it was, no more, no less.
Uh-huh.
And they wore their hearts on their sleeves, and they obviously loved the superhero material and were keen to do their own spin on it. And I loved the fact that the Doctor was basically indirectly responsible for creating a superhero.
I love the fact that it was called Dr. Mysterio.
That's what he's called in Mexico, which is, I think, why they did it.
So that's what Doctor Who's called in Mexico.
Yeah, it's called Dr. Mysterio. I know this because it was brought up during one of the world tours. When they went to Mexico, Capaldi brought up the fact that it's called Dr. Mysterio in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really good episode. I thought it was really well done. I kind of liked the segment when the Doctor visits him when he's in sort school.
Yes.
I'm saying high school. I shouldn't be saying high school because that's an American thing. We don't have
more
high
like,
school.
More like middle school anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, we actually do have high school here now. My niece has started my niece goes to high school, so they've started calling it that now. But it used to be called secondary modern or just senior school or what have you. But I love that part where he's trying not to look at the girls because he's X-ray vision. and I just thought, how incredibly polite. And then there's that line that comes up in it later on where he's talking to the reporter, his reporter girlfriend that he's just kind of gotten together with. And she asks him how long puberty went on for, and he goes, it went on for quite a while.
Oh God.
I just thought that was so funny and so cute. But what I also liked about it is it was unapologetic, like you say, and it was very much channeling this sort of like the same sort of vibe that the Richard Donner movies channeled. Yes,
yeah, but the Richard Donner movies are still the standard in terms of classic superhero movies and what they should be like. And part of the problem is, I kind of think of it as the Game of Thronesization of everything. Game of Thrones was so popular that then everybody thinks that they need to be dark.
Yeah, that's not necessarily it though, because the Batman films, the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, I think that came out before Game of Thrones did.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's kind of like the template that DC are using. Whereas if
here's the thing, I don't like the Nolan films very much. I kind of regard them as films with subpar scripts that were elevated by stellar acting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like the second one out of the three of them best of all. The first one dragged a bit.
Yeah.
But I still quite enjoyed it because it was different. I mean, I personally think the Christopher Nolan Batman films are actually truer to the original roots of the Batman character. Because the original roots of the Batman character, he actually killed people. He actually carried a gun. You know, he was a vigilante and he was merciless in the original comics. So I think that's what the Nolan films hark back to. I mean, it wasn't really until the 60s and 70s that they lightened the tone of Batman. for the Burt Ward and the Burt Ward and Adam West series, which I wasn't really which I was a huge fan of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But now, and as an adult, and even as an 18, when I was in my late teens, I wasn't really a fan of it because, you know, I preferred Batman to be darker because that's what Batman actually should be and was. Whereas, you know, I prefer Superman to be lighter. You know?
Yeah. The thing is that the Batman 60 series, I recently discovered some Batman serials from 1943 and 1949, respectively. And the Batman series in the 60s is a response to those serials. Mm-hmm. So every iteration of Batman has been a response to the iteration before. Yeah. And so 66 was about the 40s serials. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the thing is, you got to remember that in the comic book form, it's changed and evolved so much over the years. And that kind of, like in the 80s, it started going back to Dark Batman again, with Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight Returns and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas I should imagine at some point it could actually eventually go the other way. You know, you don't know. I mean, but the thing is, the reason the Batman versus the Superman movie didn't work for me is because both the characters were dark.
Yeah, they can't both be dark. There's got to actually be contrast.
Whereas the whole point of the thing between Batman and Superman, whenever they're together in the cartoon films and stuff like that, is Superman's kind of like the more optimistic one.
Yeah.
Batman's the more sort of like pessimistic, cynical, pragmatist.
Yeah, and they genuinely don't like each other beyond a certain point because they have actual philosophical differences that didn't adequately come through in that movie because they were trying to do too much.
Yeah, well, you know, the only thing that saved that movie, and she only just managed to do it, was Wonder Woman.
Yes, I'm actually looking forward to Wonder Woman.
But I would say that because I'm bloke, and any woman that's got the physique to, you know, dress up as Wonder Woman, I'm so gonna go for.
Yeah, I'm just pleased that they've actually hired a foreign national to play her because somebody over there finally remembered that she's actually a foreign national. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on, we've done Doctor Who. Librarians. I've not seen the latest episode yet, so I'm not up to date. But feel free to sort of like spoil it anyway because I'm going to watch it.
It's actually my favorite one so far. It's about vampires who found a way to walk in the sun. Oh. And it's an episode in which they actually deal with Cassandra's brain tumor. It actually comes to a head, and they have to deal with it. I think in part they wanted to deal with it to eliminate her from the are they going to kill her pool.
Yeah, well, we know who they're going to kill, don't we?
It's going to have to be. I'm hoping it's Flynn. Simply because I don't actually like bait and switch narratives. I've gotten to a point where if you're going to say you're going to kill somebody, that needs to actually be the somebody you kill.
I'm kind of hoping it's Flynn, but I've got a feeling it's going to be Jenkins.
I'm hoping not. Because the episode you haven't seen yet has a kick-ass Jenkins moment where you're reminded that he is Galahad. Mm-hmm. And there's a subplot between him and Cassandra when she initially refuses to have surgery to remove the tumor because she thinks that her powers, her math powers, are going to go bye-bye and her entire identity will go bye-bye with it, and she'd rather die as what she is. And so initially she won't go in for the surgery, and when she thinks she's going to die, she asks Jenkins if she wants to go out for dinner.
Cool.
And we get him talking a little bit about being immortal and having taken this vow because he fell in love with this woman from afar who was probably very, Guinevere. And I'm hoping we meet her.
That'd be good. But yeah, I've been enjoying the series so far. I'm not going to say it's the best series we've had because I think that for me is still the first one.
Yeah.
But it's maintained the standard and managed to do something different every year and still remained fun and interesting to watch.
Yes.
And I've really enjoyed it.
It's rather wonderful.
As like family entertainment, and I hope that it can go on. I'm hoping it can go on as long as Supernatural, at least.
which has gotten renewed for season 13. Bless them.
I know. It's and you know what's crazy about it is Supernatural started losing its legs with me around about season 7. I still watch it, but I don't go out my way to make it a must-watch TV. I'll just sort of like let a few episodes build up on the on the thing and then watch it, sort of thing. But it's not something I immediately tune in for every week. I generally usually watch it when there's nothing else happening now. But it's kind of I've got a feeling that season 13 might well be its last. You know, because those two actors and stuff like that, they've died so many times already in the series.
Yeah.
So it's you know, I think they're gonna have to call time on it at some point. But yeah, Librarians, I'm hoping it can go on for that long because they don't have to keep the same cast. That's the thing. Librarians die. So they don't have to keep the same cast. They could actually have new people come in and stuff like that, sort of thing. And Jenkins could, pass on and regenerate into somebody else or what have you.
Yes.
So there is potential there for Librarians to go on and on and on if it continues to, score good ratings and what have you.
Yeah, I'm hoping Jenkins stays around a little longer because there's a sequence in Jenkins Saves the Day. And he saves the day in Galahad mode, and you're reminded that he is Galahad, and it is a kick-ass scene. And when you see it, you'll start to wonder, you'll start to wish you'd been a fly on the wall when Lara Kent got the script for the episode, because it's just one of those scenes that you pray for as an actor of a certain age. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I've noticed as well, it's now no longer being produced by John Rogers. It's actually I can't remember the name off the top of my head. The guy that created the series and the films, did the Independence Day movies.
Dean Devlin.
Dean Devlin. It's now Dean Devlin.
It's always been produced by him. Yeah.
Yeah, but the first 2 seasons were produced by him and John Rogers.
Oh, so John Rogers isn't connected as a producer anymore. Okay.
No, I think he's written a few episodes, but he's no longer there as a producer. Because I got informed of that when I mentioned John Rogers in one of my reviews, and they say he's no longer a producer, and he said to me himself on Twitter, "I'm no longer a producer on this show, but it's a nice review. Pass it on to Dean Devlin." And he passed it on to Dean Devlin, and Dean Devlin retweeted it. So it's but yeah, it's I think John Rogers is actually working on a reboot of Magnum.
Okay.
I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but he was mentioning something he was working on called Magnum, and I don't know if it's the same sort of like thing or if it's a different thing.
If it's the same thing, I hope it's better than MacGyver, because MacGyver was dire.
Oh, MacGyver still is dire. It's still happening. It's still going on. I don't know if you read my latest review, but apparently, apparently Thornton's a traitor.
Yes.
And I was thinking, good, because she wasn't working anyway. But she's not going to be written out because I was looking ahead the other day and she's still in the cast for the next 10 episodes.
Oh gosh.
So I've got a feeling it's a bluff. So I'm just gonna watch it for you. I'll carry on reviewing them, but you probably noticed I'm scoring them less and less with each passing episode.
Yeah, you are. And speaking of a show moving on that we were not thrilled with, there's Emerald City. It was not good.
It was. I felt sorry for the actors, to be honest.
I really did, because it was obvious they were giving their all. They were really trying.
It's just really badly written, ill-conceived. They've moved too far away from the mythology of Wizard of Oz and everything that makes Wizard of Oz so good. They've kind of tried to go Game of Thrones light with it. Yeah. And we got the Wicked Witch of the West, who's what? She's a flipping hooker and alcoholic.
Yes. And the flying monkeys are drones.
Yep. And Dorothy's committed murder twice now. First time by accident, the second time purposefully. Yes. Well, actually 3 times. No, twice, because sort of like the old lady, they let her live, didn't they? Yeah. But, it was sort of like, so Dorothy doing that was just amazingly out of character, really.
Yeah, it's I've talked about this before. This isn't just specific to any one show. This is systemic. This is the entertainment industry becoming too wed to allegory. It's where the allegory becomes more important than the overall story and the source material that they're commenting on in the first place. Mm-hmm. And this is becoming a problem more and more just generally. They need. It's like they've got an allegory problem. They need to stage an intervention and wean themselves off it.
I think what they need to do is they need to go back to doing serialized television for a while.
Yeah.
Because at least when they did that, they told a story, and the allegory wasn't say as important as say having likable characters. And a decent storyline that had a beginning, middle, and an end. I mean, the one thing with Wizard of Oz is it doesn't work right away because they're trying to tell the first L. Frank Baum story as a TV series running over 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to do that over 10 episodes. You could probably do it over 2 episodes, sort of thing, and do it quite well over 2 episodes. But if you try to drag it out over 10 episodes, you're having to add more bits and pieces of the universe and more stuff in order to make it better, and you're having to change too much stuff. So it no longer becomes identifiable as the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. And the other problem is, and I'm saying this as an English major who's actually studied allegory is overrated. Allegory is something that needs to be used as a scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Yeah, I mean, it should be there to set the characters up.
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
It's glue, not the narrative itself.
I mean, I'm fine with it being there to set the characters up, give them a little bit of a backstory sort of thing. But don't give them a backstory and go on about it for 10 minutes, where you can actually use that 10 minutes to actually be moving the story along.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I mean, I'm not an English major, but I did actually study English language and literature, but I didn't do it as an English major. I basically got a C+. And didn't think I was going to get that because I actually struggled with written English in as a general rule because it wasn't really my thing. Because I'm more of a visual thinker, and that's always been my thing, visuals and music and sound. But written English, not my thing, as my articles can attest to on the website. And I'm kind of half joking there because even my stuff on the website is probably better than a lot of stuff you see elsewhere on other websites, sort of thing. I'm probably no worse or better than your average person that's doing it, really, unless they're professional and they're being paid super bucks. I mean, what I'm saying is I've seen worse than me, I've seen better than me, so I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of average. So I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet there by any means. But, as someone who isn't an English major, I know what a good story is.
Yes.
And that should be at the end, and I'm guessing that's what an English major does at the end of the day, identifies the elements that make up a good story.
Yes. I do everything you do, except I have a larger vocabulary to do it with.
No, you just have a bigger toolkit. I won't say a larger vocabulary because that's actually
the vocabulary that goes along with the toolkit. I know what these things are called, basically. Yeah. So.
Because if you want to have a war of words, we can do this right now. But yeah, you got a better toolkit than me. Yeah. You've got power tools. I've got analog.
That's okay. Analog still gets the job done.
Yeah, it still does. But yeah, the Emerald City, awful.
Really bad, like actively bad.
But that said, it can only get better from here and in if you stick with it.
I don't plan to.
If you want to stick with it. I don't plan to either, but I'm sort of like, I'm trying to be optimistic. For those that, there probably will be people that'll stick with it. And then they'll get to the end of it and think, wow, but, this, for me, was actually worse than what I did to Flash Gordon, and that's saying something.
Because Flash Gordon at the time was the most dire thing I'd ever seen.
Oh my God, they amputated his dick and his balls. And that's basically they basically took his manhood away from him, because he was living with his mum, in the series, and and that's basically what they did. They took the machismo, the macho-ness, the sort of like the manliness away from the character.
Yeah, and then gave all of that testosterone plus to a really lamely written variation of Ming the Merciless.
Yeah, with hair.
With hair.
And he wasn't, Max von Sydow did a brilliant job of it.
Yeah, I loved him. He was awesome.
And Charles Middleton in the movie serials.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ming the Merciless, and that's the way it should be done. It should never be done as sort of like basically they just tried to ground Ming the Merciless and turn him into a sympathetic politician. It didn't work. If you try and turn a tyrant into a sympathetic politician, you just sort of like, it doesn't work.
No, commit. You just got to commit.
You just got to commit and make the character as villainous and as despotic and as nasty as possible.
Mm.
And either people like him as a villain or they don't like him. I mean, you're not supposed to like the villain anyway.
No. And we've talked about this before. One of the problems that we have is that a lot of the villains they're too charismatic. It's basically Hans Gruberitis.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make the villains too charismatic, you're screwed. It's, you gotta write the characters equal. There's gotta be an equal balance. You're not gonna make it.
Hans Gruber was he was a likeable villain, but he was still a villain.
Yes.
At the end of the day, and and the only reason that worked wasn't just because of the writing. It was mostly Alan Rickman. That's why it worked. It was mostly Alan Rickman.
It was Rickman. I mean, it was on account of Rickman, and that they even had that wonderfully pivotal scene with Gruber and the American accent. That wasn't even in the film. That was because they discovered Rickman could do an American accent.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, that's the whole thing, sort of like, because, Rickman was just such a bloody good actor, he was sort of like, it was sad to lose him. Talking of which, what else did we say I was going to talk about? So we was going to talk about DC stuff, but I want to quickly touch on
Sherlock.
A few things. Oh, Sherlock. Okay, I want to touch on something after Sherlock before we go into the DC stuff.
Okay.
Because we've had a lot of things happen over Christmas. But I watched Sherlock last night, and I thought, awesome.
Yes. If one or both of them doesn't get a BAFTA, I'm going to be very annoyed. Because that was, or at the very least, a BAFTA nomination, if not the award, because that was worthy of some acknowledgement.
I mean, Toby Jones as the villain in that was way, way better than Moriarty.
Oh God, Toby Jones was next level. And here's the thing: I've read the Holmes canon. You have too. The story that it was taken from is The Dying Detective. And the reason, and you complained about the fact that he confesses at the end, that's because that's a nod to the original story. That's how the original story plays out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they basically did some different twists and turns to get to their version of how the story plays out.
I wasn't really complaining as such. I was just a little bit disappointed because I wanted a little bit more of a mystery.
I think they had to wrap that up because for the East Wind sister, Euros.
I could understand why they did it that way because it was all about Sherlock helping Dr. Watson and Dr. Watson being coaxed out to help Sherlock. So you couldn't really have a mystery as such, to do that. You had to set something really complicated and really dire and really nasty up in order to sort of like pull Watson out of his slump. Yes. And that's what they did. I mean, I enjoyed the bit at the beginning where he seemed to be walking around London on his own and he was actually with Eros. Yes. Sort of thing. And I'm betting they will hark back to that in the next episode and reveal how it was done. But I thought it was all very clever and really, really dark. I've only watched it the one time. I'm going to have to watch it again at some point so I can pick up on a few more of the subtleties of it.
I'm wondering how it is that family ended up the way they did within the modern series canon, because in the story canon, the original story canon, there is some acknowledgement of some discrete instabilities in their family line. When Sherlock and Mycroft are talking in some of the original stories, there are some brief acknowledgement that there were some instabilities there. But we've met their parents briefly, and they seem like, fairly normal people. And so you got to wonder how they ended up with these three bizarre children.
Maybe the parents died and they ended up in foster care.
That might have been. There's going to have to be something like that, because there's just no way to explain it other than that.
Well, I ended up in foster care quite a lot, and I'm a bizarre person, so that's probably why I can relate to Sherlock. Not, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. Certainly way up there with the Abominable Bride.
Yes.
And the acting performances from Cumberbatch and Toby Jones were absolutely fantastic. And obviously you had John Freeman putting in his performance, which kind of like balanced those two out. And the fact that he was being sort of like haunted by his memories of Mary because of his own guilt at having sort of like had feelings towards another woman, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was all really cleverly done. And
the thing about Cumberbatch is that some people complain that there's too much Cumberbatch, that he's pretty much everywhere now. But the reason he's everywhere isn't just because he has a fan base. It's because the man is that good.
I mean, he's kind of like the Jeremy Irons for his generation.
Yes.
If you remember when Jeremy Irons first came to light, he was everywhere. He was a villain in Die Hard. He played the voice of Scar in Lion King. He was everywhere. So, it's no different for Cumberbatch, really. Only I think arguably Cumberbatch has actually become a much bigger star because of the high-profile roles he's taken on.
Yes. And I don't know if you've seen Doctor Strange yet, but he inhabits Strange. It's the most perfect casting I think I've ever seen it in a Marvel franchise yet.
I didn't get to see it because, unfortunately, I was moving at the time that it came out in the cinema, and
rent it as soon as you can, because it is spectacular.
I probably won't even rent it; I'll just buy it.
Oh.
I buy all the Marvel stuff.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
There's no point in renting it if you're going to be watching it a few times over a period of time. I mean, I just revisited Captain America: Civil War last night, sort of thing, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm a bit dubious because I'm not really familiar with Doctor Strange in the, it's similar situation to Ant-Man. I was familiar with Ant-Man from sort of like the Avengers, but I wasn't familiar with him as a standalone character sort of thing. So, and I wasn't really compelled to read the comic or anything to find out. But I went to see the movie anyway and took a chance on it, and it's going to be the same with Doctor Strange. For me, it's going to be that same sort of situation. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about Sherlock before we move on?
No, nothing except that I'm really looking forward to the season and maybe series finale. If we don't get any more after this, I'm fine with that because they've all delivered.
I'm fine with it as well, but I think we will get more. But I think it'll be a couple of years down the line.
I'm hoping at some point we get, as part of the main story, we get a flashback to Mrs. Hudson's backstory, the sort of Miami Vice meets Arsenic and Old Lace story that they've been alluding to with her.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to see that story and see Una Stubbs get her due.
Do you know what would be cool if they CGI'd to a younger Una Stubbs?
Yes.
That'd be really cool because Una Stubbs, when she was young, she was a really attractive woman.
I gathered that she was because you could see the prettiness even at her age now.
If you've ever seen Cliff Richard and Summer Holiday, she's in that.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
It's a really shit movie, but she's in that.
I'll look up stills.
Well, it was actually a fun movie to watch growing up because sort of like Cliff Richard and that, sort of like in the 70s, he was still a pretty big deal. Now he's kind of like, I don't know, has been.
Okay.
But, music kind of moved on for me, sometime around about 1980. But in Summer Holiday, it's sort of like it's typical sort of like British, feel-good movie, and that's all it is. It's kind of like a feel-good movie. It's musical. featuring songs by Cliff Richard and the Shadows, and they basically go on holiday and drive across Europe in a London bus and have all sorts of adventures. It's very, very camp and over the top. But Una Stubbs is in that. She was in most of the Cliff Richard movies, as a matter of fact. So that's a way to see her when she was younger. But yeah, moving on, and this bears some discussion. We had the last casualty, the last few casualties for 2016 were George Michael.
Yes.
Carrie Fisher. And Carrie Fisher's mother, Debbie Reynolds.
The day later. Yeah.
The day later. The one that I'm obviously wanting to talk about is Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, there are two levels to talk about this. One is the fan level, and one is the industry level. If you think about Star Wars as a franchise, they're okay through 8 because she filmed her part for the next film. 9 is a problem. 9
is a problem, but we don't know whether they killed her off in 8.
They didn't, because the people in the industry are already talking about the fact that they're going to have to rewrite 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they may have to kill her off at the beginning of 9 or carry her on, but use CGI sort of thing.
Either way, it's going to be controversial. Either way, it's going to piss somebody off. I don't envy them. They've got some really hard decisions to make.
I don't. Forward. I mean, on that level, I don't mind them doing CGI as long as it's as good, if not better, than what they did with Grand Moff Tarkin. I mean, the Grand Moff Tarkin stuff wasn't perfect. I'm going to say that now because there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, you got fake, you didn't look real," sort of thing. But to people that who didn't know who he was, or younger viewers that had only seen New Hope and stuff like that, but didn't know who Peter Cushing was, it looked normal, sort of thing. I think what it is at the end of the day is too much of emotional attachment to it for the older fans when they do anything like this. So you're going to have this backlash no matter what you say. You're going to have people that are in the camp of, it looks cool, they did a pretty good job. They did as good a job as they could have done. They couldn't have done it 10 years ago, because if you look at what they tried to do in Revenge of the Sith, when they had the reflection of Grand Moff Tarkin, it was nowhere near.
No.
But I thought they did a really good job of it, and I thought Guy Henry did a brilliant job of voicing it. So I personally wouldn't mind if they did it, as long as Carrie Fisher had actually signed off on it before she passed.
What's ironic is they made a big deal of killing Han Solo, and then they were going to have Leia be the surviving parent who dealt with the aftermath. Mm-hmm. And then Carrie Fisher is the one who actually goes and dies. What they should have done was keep Han Solo. Because now both the parents are dead.
They would have struggled to do that because Harrison Ford wanted out.
Oh dear. Okay.
That's why they killed Han Solo. Harrison Ford wanted out. He wanted out at the end of Return of the Jedi. He didn't really want to come back to do Return of the Jedi. He wanted out back then, but he was overruled, and I think he was kind of contracted to do that.
Okay.
To come back, but he wanted to be killed in Return of the Jedi, and unfortunately they didn't grant his wish.
Okay.
But Ford wanted out. But that said, I believe that there have been rumours that there'll be flashbacks to Han Solo in the next film.
Yeah. Okay.
That's been going around for quite a while. So whether he filmed them last time or what have you, I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
But it's. It is going to be controversial no matter what they do. On the note of the actress sort of thing, I think it's really sad. I found on YouTube yesterday, and I don't think it's going to be there very long, it'll probably get removed in a matter of days, but I found Wishful Drinking, which is her one-woman show that she did in 2010.
Okay.
And I watched through that, and it was hilarious. I mean, what I'm going to miss as a fan of the movies, but also as sort of generally a bit of a fan of her as a person, is her dry wit and sarcasm and humour. every time she was on a TV show being interviewed, she was absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
And also she was a great advocate for people that had problems with mental illness.
Yes.
So we've not just lost Princess Leia, we just lost an overall, very real, very very grounded.
Very awesome person.
Very awesome human being. So it's it is sad news. And it just seems that 2016, the year from hell. We lost Bowie.
Shit. Awful.
We lost Bowie. You guys got Trump. We got bloody Brexit. We lost. It's just sort of like. So I'm hoping 2017 is the year that everything's sort of like prepped.
Stabilizes a little bit.
I'm hoping that we just have a load of reality TV stars die this year.
Please.
Yeah. Because they're useless. I'm fed up about all these people dying that are actually genuinely talented.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those. But moving on to a more positive note, you've got some DC things you want to talk about before.
Yeah, recently they had the Television Critics Association, the gift that keeps on giving. And I got 2 articles worth of stuff, which listeners are welcome to go and read the whole 2 articles to get everything that they announced. There are 3 things that are most important. A, all the DC shows have been renewed. All the CW DC shows have been renewed. B, Keith David, as in the Keith David, is voicing the guerrilla leader Solivar in their Guerrilla City 2-parter.
Awesome.
Yes. And I gotta say, they're getting some really awesome actors to do these voice roles. I hope they find some on-screen roles for some of them soon.
Keith David, though, he's awesome. I remember interviewing him a few years back. He was just brilliant.
He delivers. Everything he's in, he delivers.
He's such a nice man.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I interviewed him, moments after I'd finished interviewing him, he was following me on Twitter.
Oh.
That's just such an awesome person he actually is. He's just a really, really nice man, a really, really talented man, and I'd love to sort of like try and get an interview with him again. I'm sometimes reluctant to approach people on Twitter because I kind of want to try and respect their privacy, but at the same time, you want to get an interview sort of thing. So the only way you can do it is by asking.
The worst they can do is say no, and sometimes they say yes. So
but it's kind of like when it's with someone that you've interviewed once before and you set up that prior relationship, you're sometimes a little bit unsure about whether they'd be open to sort of like doing it again, and not really wanting to sort of like tread on their toes. But I will probably try and do that because Keith David's done quite a lot since the Cape anyway. So
yes, and he elevated the Cape. He's why the Cape was watchable.
Mm-hmm.
It was another one of those Hans Gruberitis cases where the villains and the anti-heroes were actually more interesting than the titular hero.
Mm-hmm.
But the third piece of the news from DC that is really, really cool is that they are continuing to inch back into Constantine. Constantine is getting the same treatment as Vixen. He's going to be, and this is in addition to the Justice League Dark animated movie, which is a separate thing. In addition to that, Matt Ryan will also be returning to voice Constantine in a CW Seed animated webisode series along the lines of that they're doing with Vixen.
Personally, I'm really disappointed about that. Because we can't get CW Seed, so it means we'll probably not get it here in the UK.
I am really sorry about that. I contemplated not even bringing it up at all, but there are enough American viewers and listeners that I needed to mention it. Because I am really sorry about that.
We don't even get Vixen. I've been looking everywhere for it and been looking for it sort of like via other means, and I've not found it yet.
Vixen is very rushed. The episodes combine to basically a half an hour per season. But if you get past the fact it's rushed and just look at it for what it is, it's excellent, and I'm truly sorry you don't get it. And I'm hoping that from a scheduling standpoint, it makes sense because Matt Ryan is so busy now that he probably doesn't have time for anything more than animated work with the character right now.
I'm hoping that Amazon maybe pick it up as an animated series or something.
They've got to do something. I'm truly sorry. I had hoped that between Vixen Season 1 and Vixen Season 2 they would have addressed that for fans outside the US, but apparently they haven't.
Because I absolutely loved Constantine. It was just such a brilliant series. I'm actually reading the Hellblazer comics right now because of that. And every time I read the Hellblazer comics, I actually hear the voice of Matt Ryan doing his Constantine thing.
He's so perfect. I don't care whatever they do. I hope he plays the role for life. I hope that even if they have to schedule weirdly around him and it turns into the DC equivalent of Cumberbatch, where they have to schedule weirdly around whatever else he's doing, I'm good with that. He needs to just always be Constantine.
Another bit of DC news is they've just released an awesome new photograph for Justice League. We posted that on the site as well. There's also been, something else that came from out the TCAs, which is a bit of bad news, really. And that is that Mark Podowitz at CW has said it's quite unlikely that we'll be seeing a Superman series starring Taylor Hoechlin. Certainly not in the immediate future anyway. And there are at present no plans to have him return to Supergirl.
That really sucks.
But that's only at present. I think when Matt Podowitz said that, he's talking about the immediate future of Supergirl as in this season.
It's going to probably the rest of this year, because this whole year is in the can. So whatever they're going to do, they're going to have to start next year making plans. So.
But hopefully, we'll see him pop up again, because, he was awesome. He was as good as Dean Cain was. I won't say he was better than Dean Cain, because let's face it, Dean Cain's series focused mainly on the romance between Lois and Clark, sort of thing, and the adventures were kind of second, and it was kind of campy and cheesy, but I liked it. And, no one's ever really going to get, surpass what Christopher Reeve did.
No, and that's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. It's wonderful that they're chasing Christopher Reeve, and it's kind of sad that they're never going to catch up. Because you would like to think that there would be an actor out there that could come close to what he did. Hoechlin comes as close as I've seen yet.
I mean, I thought Dean Cain got fairly close, really, considering. Certainly Henry Cavill is nowhere near, and it's not
which is sad, because if you look at Henry Cavill in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I watched and enjoyed thoroughly. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it thoroughly, but I did. He has the range to play the role closer to the Donner version.
Oh, he easily has the range. It's just the way they've written it and set it up.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with his acting, and I've always said that whenever I've criticised those movies, I said it's absolutely nothing to do with Henry Cavill as an actor. No. It's just the way it's been written and set up. It's basically Zack Snyder. He's incapable of writing a script. Sorry, he only does one sort of script: dark, gritty, and full of spectacle, but no humour. Watchmen was quite a sombre affair. But that said, Watchmen in the comic book is a sombre affair as well. So, that actually suited Zack Snyder's strength, whereas Superman doesn't.
No.
It's and also if you look at the DC movies, it's the same writers. It's David S. Goyer and stuff like that. And whereas if you look at the Marvel movies, you've had different writers on pretty much every single one, or the same team of writers, but they're continued on because they actually do good work, and they're actually balancing out the edgier moments with the humour and everything else. So as far as the movie contest goes, Marvel's still knocking out of the park, and DC's still got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got that Tyler Hoechlin. I can't enunciate his name.
I think it's Hoechlin.
Hoechlin.
Yeah.
Tyler Hoechlin. I just swung out a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
he did it really good. Although I've got to admit, there was some quite embarrassing photos that circulated of him on the internet before the episodes went live of his backside in the Superman suit. And thought, why are you showing these photos? You know, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So is that it for this week? We anything else?
I think we've covered it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks as always for being on.
Oh, you're welcome. Enjoyed it.
And also thanks to Frank Martin for agreeing to be interviewed here on the show. And we wish him every success with the comics. He's actually not going to be doing any more of the comic book series, Modern Testament. He's actually moving on to new projects now. So Volume 3 of Modern Testament is the last one. But I wish him luck with future projects, because he's got quite a few that he talks about in the interview. So best of luck with that. That's it for now. So it's goodbye from us till next time, and we do have another interview coming up. Quite an exciting one. It's with one of the new guest cast members of Supernatural. So I'll not say who it is, because I don't want to jinx it before we've actually got it in the can. But we are scheduled to do it soon. So bye for now.